I'm going to show you how to make a fabric postcard. This is the one that I'm going to be making in the tutorial, not specifically this design, but just in general how to make a fabric postcard. This is just a little Santa that I made this was a leftover block from a previous project. So let's go over to the tutorial and I'll show you how to do it. All right, here we go. Let's make our little fabric postcard. This one is Christmas themed. I used a leftover Santa block, this little Santa hat that I had from a previous project. Postcards need to be 4 inches by 6 inches, and this block was only 4-inch square, so I added a couple of strips of extra fabric to make it the 6 inches. A little tip, if you are going to fussy cut, you can put highlighter tape on your ruler the size that you want it to be, and then that way if you're trying to line up a particular print, you can just lay that on there and you can see where your design will land. So I've got my piece all made. This is 4 inches by 6 inches. You need a stabilizer. This is Peltex. Timtex is another brand that you can use, and it's just a polyester stiffening fabric type of thing. Peltex is made by Pellon. This is the number 70, which has no fusible on either side. 71 has fusible on one side, and 72 has fusible on both sides. I choose the one that doesn't have fusible because I like to do my own fusible on it, which allows me to be more flexible with how I use this. You can sew directly on this, and if you want to just sew like strips, like you would as kind of like paper piecing, you can sew directly on it. I've just made my fabric by itself. You're going to need a piece of light colored fabric to go on the back of the postcard. This is just a piece of muslin, so I can write on it and you can easily see my message and the address. So I like to use Steam-A-Seam. Wonder Under is another brand. Steam-A-Seam I like because this is a little bit tacky, so you can stick it on kind of like a post-it note and you can move it around for different projects. And then you peel off the release paper, and this is gluey on this side. You're going to need a pressing surface, an iron, and I really recommend like a Teflon nonstick sheet because you are going to be pressing with some gluey, and if it doesn't line up exactly, then it's not going to get on your surface. So I've already got a piece of the Steam-A-Seam on the back of the muslin. I'm going to put it on here to put the Steam-A-Seam on there. I put it on my Teflon sheet, and then you just go by your manufacturer's instructions. This says to press it for like 10 to 15 seconds. And you can tell how the color changed, that the glue is being activated and it's actually gluing itself to the back of that fabric. And let me press this, and there we go. So let this cool. And while that's cooling, I want to talk about markers or how you're going to write on it. Gel pens work. I happen to have a micron pen. Micron pens are good for writing on fabric. I like to write my message while my backing fabric is just by itself before I stick it onto my Peltex, because this does have some cushion that when I write my message, it will be on a more solid surface. And if you're trying to write when it's on here, then you've got some squish, and for me it's just a little messier and a little harder to write on. So my top fabric is ready to stick onto my Peltex. So I've got my piece of Peltex cut at 4 by 6. I will peel off the other piece of relief paper that's on there. And I don't know if you can notice, is there a shine? That's all glue that's been put on there. So I will now stick that onto my Peltex piece. And it doesn't have to be exactly to the edge, as close as you can, because we are going to be satin stitching around the edge of it, and that will kind of hide some of that unevenness if your piece happens to be a little bit uneven. So I'm just giving this a quick press. Now, if you want to, you can stitch on here. If you had a piece, just a solid piece of fabric, and you wanted to do some quilting or something on it, now's the time that you would do that. I would just caution you to use a light thread on your bobbin so that when your back piece goes on, you're not seeing that quilting stitching on the back. So that's ready to go. Now I am going to, get ready to write my message on my back piece. I find, see, this is 6 inches, half of that would be 3, but I find if I go over just a little bit more, then I have a little bit more for the address. So the address will go on the right side of your postcard, and then this will be the side that you leave your message. Be sure to leave a space for your stamp. So when you're starting your address, make sure it's low enough that a stamp can fit on it. So I just mark a line kind of right in the middle section just to give a separation of this is my address, this is my message. So I will just write on here, Merry Christmas. And then I would place my address. Once that's done and the way I want it, I will then stick it to the back of my other piece, my Peltex. Now, if you do have a top and bottom, make sure when you flip it that you're not getting it upside down so that your message on the back is the right side. Peeling off that relief paper and getting it stuck on there and glue it on. Once we get this part done, then I'm going to take it to my sewing machine and I'm going to do a satin stitch all the way around. When you set your machine to satin stitch, basically it's just a zigzag stitch that you've closed the length of your stitches so they just stack right on top of each other, right next to each other, so that it just gives a nice edge. So there's my postcard, and let's go to the machine and do some stitching. Okay, I'm getting ready to stitch. I will start with my little leader. All right. You start wherever you want. I like to start on the bottom. And I will program my machine for my satin stitch. And here we go. And you just want to make sure you go over the edge. I back stitch the first little stitches, and I will just continue around the rectangle here. So I'm coming to back to where I started. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to overlap that just a little bit, then I'll do a little back stitch. Now I'm going to make sure I go around and just lay my scissors flat on the fabric and cut any extra little threads that are sticking out. Even from the fabric that I pieced with, pull any little tags that come out. I want to make this as easy for my postal carrier as possible and have things less likely to get caught up in any kind of machinery. And there you go, the postcard is done. So now I would just address this to whoever, put my stamp on it, put my return address on it. This does take a little bit more postage. I checked with my postal carrier and got stamps that included the extra that it takes to hand cancel it. You be careful not to use anything on it that's going to really stick up, just because this is going to be going through their machines and being handled a lot. So keep it as smooth as you can. I will now give him a little face. So I'll give my little Santa a little face, and I'm just going to draw his little eyes on there. And there, I got a little Santa. So give it a try. This doesn't have to be for Christmas. You can make postcards for any occasion. And I think whoever receives this will think it's pretty cute. Okay, I hope you can see how easy that really is. You can make the postcards using pretty much anything fabric that you want, using those techniques of adhering it to the Peltex, stitching it around the edges and all that kind of stuff. This is a different version of a Christmassy one, but it doesn't have to be Christmassy. I just took different widths of green and red fabric and just sewed them as I went along, and sewed it directly to this Peltex. I don't know that you can see it because I had white thread on the back, but there wasn't any fusible. I just sewed directly to it. So now when I put my backing on, I use the white thread in the back so that none of that shows through, and that will be a really cute Christmas card. This is another version that I did of Christmas cards. I decided to send them as my Christmas cards this year for 2021, and I hope that the people that get them will really enjoy them. They're not just for Christmas. This is just a solid piece of fabric that I did stitch around this snail just to give it an outline. I don't know that it was necessary, but I did it that way. And then I just buried my threads underneath the top layer of that Peltex so that you won't see them, and I'll just snip those off, and then nothing shows when I put my light piece of fabric on the back with my message. You won't see any of this. So that is just a solid piece of fabric, no piecing, pretty easy to do. If you're a stamper and you have stamp ink that is fabric ink, do some stamping, and that could be a really fun way of doing it. So there's a lot of different ways that you can make these, as long as you just make the basic size and just kind of follow the technique of making the actual card. The sky's the limit. I even thought it would be kind of neat to make a stack of them, maybe 4 or 5 cards, to give as a gift, blank on the back side, and give that as a gift. And that way the recipient would have the cards. I would give a pen that they could write with and the appropriate stamps, and then all they would have to do is write their message, address it, stick the stamp on, and they've got little fabric postcards to send out that they didn't have to make. So that could be even a really fun gift to give as well. So I hope you found that helpful. I hope you decide to give it a try and see what you can come up with. Thanks for watching.